you saw a need and it wasn't being met, so you were like,
Mhm.
"I'm just gonna start meeting this need." What was it in you that made you think, "Okay, I can do this?"
Probably sheer audacity
Yeah.
with a trace of narcissism. The early days of the show, man, were not what they are today. They were very much just I took this book that I read this week or I read this one study and said, "Here's this specific thing. Here's what I learned. Here's what you can do." And maybe I didn't phrase it as I literally just thought of this or I spent the whole week researching this one topic. I may have presented it differently. Um, but the intention was still the same essentially, but the form was not. So, I started where I was at. I started with just the passion, just the knowledge that I thought I could get some information across, and that was about it. And it just kinda grew from there. I started at, like, well, what can I can do the bare minimum. I can take book reviews every year. That's actually how I had started the podcast originally is that I've had several, but before any of them stuck, the way that I was learning to do that kind of content creation was through book reviews. So I think that's still out there somewhere. I'm not gonna say the name
Yeah.
of it. Horrible, but yeah, no, like, that was I kinda just escalated that a little bit. I figured, well, I tell people I'm not a doctor, they can't get mad at me if I'm wrong about something, so they still do, but it's okay.
And man, I love that it was just that initiative to start where you're at. I think
Yeah,
that's great, and that's an awesome practical step for those that are listening that are creative or that feel that they're creative but don't know where to start. And the key is to just start because it's not going to be pretty. Like, I mean,
yep,
I can think of my early stuff, even like when I rap, I was using a hand me down Dell laptop and a rock band mic,
yeah,
and it sounded like hot garbage. But I
yeah,
started and I stuck with it, and I mean, next thing you know, I'm using, a studio setup and whatnot and actually making high quality beats, and I say all that to say that you've gotta start somewhere, and
mhm,
that's there's such a beauty to that, and there's a beauty in the rawness that comes from that, because it's like when you've got that and you touched on it being a bit narcissistic about the approach, but it's just like it's almost like the Dunning-Kruger effect of, like, when you first start something and the level of confidence you have. Sometimes I wish I had some of that confidence sometimes because it's like the more you get into things and the more knowledge you get, the more you realize you know nothing.
yep,
And there's plenty of times I've pressed
yep,
record and been like, that was awful." But early me would have been
yeah.
like, "Man, this is amazing."